Follow up now on the Toledo Clinic's main campus, which reopened today following that HAZMAT scare that forced a 2-day closure. We're told that people in the clinic began experiencing respiratory issues late Wednesday morning, and the buildings were evacuated. Firefighters brought special meters and a HAZMAT team where they tested the air and recorded traces of what they called volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. The clinic hired a third-party company then to help understand what had happened and confirm it would be safe to reopen today. But as of tonight, the exact source of those compounds is still not known. Now, when the Toledo Fire and Rescue Department responds to a fire, the response is quick. HAZMAT situations like what happened at the Toledo Clinic this week are the time when they really slow it down and get it right. 13 Action News anchor Lily Lowndes talked with the team about what happened behind the scenes of that response.
Pepper spray was initially thought to be the cause of this scene at the Toledo Clinic earlier this week. But when it became clear breathing problems and scratchy throats were caused by something else in the air, the HAZMAT team was called out.
Start to do the deeper dive into the situation and you realize, wait a minute, this is not something simple.
Deputy Chief Bryce Blair with the Toledo Fire and Rescue Department was there Wednesday as the team tried to figure out what the hazardous material was. When it's a solid or liquid, Blair said the team can have an exact idea of what the substance is. Gas is more difficult.
VOCs run a gamut. There's many of volatile organic compounds.
The air at the Toledo Clinic on Secor showed high levels of volatile organic compounds, or VOCs. Testing is good enough to know the air is hazardous, but the department does not have a test for every possible gas. VOCs come in a wide range. The team determined the risk based on reported symptoms. With no serious side effects, the HAZMAT team secured the building of non-essential personnel. Some surgeries actually continued before closing for the rest of Wednesday and Thursday. TFRD finished its part of the investigation. No cause or substance was identified, but crews did clear the high levels of VOCs. The Toledo Clinic took over, working with contractors and environmental experts to ensure the HAZMAT situation did not return. TFRD did one last check Thursday, making sure everything was safe, and the clinic reopened Friday. I'm Lily Lowndes, 13 Action News.